Small businesses are relentlessly targeted by plaintiffs' law firms, and anecdotally, it feels like small businesses are being sued over website accessibility more than ever. And this is just from talking to clients and then reading discussion online, and of course, looking at the complaints filed in court. On the screen with me, I have a Reddit thread titled "Just Got Hit by a Website Accessibility Lawsuit." And so we're going to go through and read several of the comments added to this thread. But one general takeaway is just how many small business owners are being sued. So on this original post, it continues, wondering if anyone called their bluff and went to trial. What happened? Edit. I became aware of the lawsuit because defense firms brought it to my attention. I haven't even been served yet. And then the last line reads, it just seems so scummy on both ends, so I'm not sure who to trust with the law and best options. And this scenario is one I've covered multiple times before. You'll have defense lawyers, you'll have digital accessibility companies, and even marketing agencies who are racing to email website owners. And oftentimes the website owner is completely unaware that they've been sued. So they're finding out that they've been sued through these various companies and agencies, and it just feels off. Many people wonder if it's a scam. So you always want to check and make sure that you've been sued. But this is something that almost universally, when I talk to people, this is bad form. Something feels off about someone telling you you've been sued before you even know about it, and then trying to sell you something while they're contacting you or after they've contacted you. So let's go ahead and read through a few of the comments. Serious question. If my small business website is built in Weebly, now Square, using their templates, do I have anything to worry about, or should everything be automatically be compliant? No, nothing is automatically would be considered compliant. Nothing is automatically accessible. Even if a platform does provide accessibility considerations, you still can easily disrupt the accessibility by adding content or changing code, etc. So just keep that in mind. The comment continues on, I'm a small service business with less than 20 informational pages detailing different services we offer. No purchasing takes place there, just landing pages with info and contact forms for reaching out to us to schedule. So that's the good part about being an informational website. It's easier to make your website accessible because it's simpler. There aren't as many interactive elements. So it's not to say that there aren't still many accessibility considerations into play, but it's just much, much easier. So someone replied here, you need to be WCAG 2.1 level AA compliant. They mean conformant. Get a checklist online and verify that you are. It's not as easy as that, especially if you're not familiar with accessibility. It's not that easy. Even if you have the checklist, you still need to know how to resolve the existing accessibility issues. You still need to know how to find the issues. And so while some of it is intuitive, if you're brand new to it, it's not going to be as intuitive. So you really do, if you're just starting out, if you're unaware of accessibility, looking at a checklist is a good first start, and you will be able to understand some of the accessibility considerations right away. But if you're unfamiliar with it, it will take some time. So that's when it's helpful to have expertise and have someone help you with it. Another comment reads, I'm a business lawyer, not your business lawyer. I had a client recently get hit with one of these. The plaintiff filed over 60 of these suits since the beginning of the year. I pulled the docket for all of them, and only one bothered to fight it, and they just had the judge allow the plaintiff to amend their complaint. Most will settle for $5,000 more or less, and it will cost more to fight it to fight it with no guarantee of success. So this business lawyer is right on. This is what happens, right? We have these serial plaintiffs who are filing lawsuits over and over again, and they cost much more to defend than it will be to settle in most cases. So that is why almost all of these cases end up settling. But we have seen increasing success with going ahead and filing motions to dismiss based on standing. So we have seen some success there, and some courts are tired of the game. Another comment, which is a reply to the business lawyer, even after you settle, what's to stop anyone else from suing you again? Because you can never be 100% compliant if you rely upon third-party site builders. What's to stop anyone else from suing you again? Not much, right? Remediation would be what would be the stopping, how you would stop someone. So if you fix the accessibility issues, the more accessibility issues you fix, particularly the more accessibility issues that plaintiffs' lawyers gravitate towards, that's how you stop from being sued. Now, it says, because you can never be 100% compliant if you rely upon third-party site builders. No, you can make your website fully WCAG 2.1 AA conformant, even if you're using a third-party platform. You just have to make sure that you have full code access. If you have full code access, then you can reach full conformance. Another comment, got hit by it a few years ago, went to court, got destroyed, not a bluff, just try to compromise as best as possible. So again, what I was talking about in the beginning, this is really happening. And when I talk to clients, many of them tell me they weren't even aware that this was a possibility. They didn't even know that they could make a website accessible, let alone that people were being sued for ADA compliance. So if you do know other website owners, be sure to let them know that this is happening, because all too often, I have clients that come to me and they're completely unaware this is happening, and I'm talking about in 2024. So I clicked on another comment, still loading. One person wrote in reply to this to the went to court person, did you fix the problems before court? I heard of people winning because they fixed all the issues that the scanner tool that was used in the lawsuit has found. I'm curious how much truth there is. I mean, it's certainly possible, but if you're going to get a case dismissed based on mootness, it's probably going to be more than just you fix all of the issues that's a scan. What likely happened if there was a dismissal is the website was in full WCAG conformance. And by the way, there's a difference. Like a scan is only going to flag a limited subset of accessibility issues. Think of 25% of the success criteria in WCAG 2.1 AA. That is really the extent of how many accessibility issues that scans can flag, and they don't even flag conclusively. You still have to manually review to ensure there aren't other issues that weren't caught that were supposed to be caught, and then there weren't any false positives. And there aren't too many false positives nowadays. But what can happen is one thing is that a scan can just return incomplete results, and so you have to scan again to make sure that the scan is accurate. Continuing on with Reddit. So technically we settled before court, but we definitely didn't win. We paid them a settlement amount and promised that within 2 years, all of our pages would meet ADA requirements. Mind you, my site has over 100,000 pages, so it is no small task to go and make those changes. I had my team working their asses off for a long time. So you always want to limit however much the non-money settlement terms. Most people focus in on the actual money amount of the settlement, and understandably so. But you also have to be aware of what you are agreeing to with these plaintiffs' law firms, and understand that there is where you have more leverage than with the money, because the plaintiffs' law firms are much more concerned with the final dollar amount than they are the actual terms of accessibility. So you always want to diminish as much as possible any non-money settlement terms. Continuing on here. Another comment, just curious about this, and I don't doubt you, but I keep wondering what was alleged, that you violated some statute or regulation. Okay, and then the comment continues on, but I'll read the reply. My website was not ADA compliant for blind people. This led to the website accessibility lawsuit. While I'm not saying that it isn't an issue, my website sells puzzles and plastic models you have to put together. So e-commerce store owners, this is something you really need to be aware of. It's not just Shopify either. It's other e-commerce platforms. And the comment continues on, and I did some checking, and this particular blind person that was suing me had 16 other open lawsuits, all against people in my field. It is just a person who was going around looking for the compliance error to get free money from small businesses. Luckily, we survived, but 3 other guys I knew in my field got put out of business by the lawsuits this person was pushing us on. Yes, this is really happening. Small businesses are being put out of business by these lawsuits. It is that serious. It is so serious. And I still think that a lot of people it's not quite sinking in for some small business owners that this is you. It's you. It can happen to any website owners, but we see e-commerce stores they are especially at risk of website accessibility litigation. Someone writes, it's not a bluff. Again, that's just what I was saying. This is not fake. This is in a way you could say it's a scam, but it is not a scam. These are actual lawsuits. And these are actually complaints being filed. And most of the time, the demand letters are real, and they will follow up on those demand letters. They don't just go away. Is there some type of threshold for who is supposed to be ADA compliant, or is it everyone? In my province, it appears accessibility rules for websites only apply to businesses employing 50 or more people. It reads like this person is from Ontario, because it sounds like he's referring to the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act. In the United States, ADA compliance is generally going to, it's difficult to answer this question because there is the actual law and the technical aspects of the law. There is the interpretation by the courts, and then there's the practical reality that small business owners, in a sense, are subject to the whims of plaintiffs' law firms, because if a plaintiff's law firm decides to sue you, it is still a practical loss. So I do recommend that all website owners make their website WCAG 2.1 AA conformant. However, some website owners are at much more risk than others, and this is in the practical sense. So the answer here is a layered one, but just the general takeaway, if you have a website, I would make it accessible. And there are other options. I will link to an article on those other options, and I'll probably create a video on alternatives if you can't afford accessibility services, or if you're thinking about taking your website down. I will include some resources in the description. And then we'll just continue on with a few more comments because I think these are very helpful comments. It's too bad the legal system is so broken that it takes 5K to fight this to get them dismissed rather than the court being able to see them for the shakedown that they are. Yes, that is probably the biggest problem here is the asymmetry. Plaintiffs' lawyers mostly have very little to lose by filing these complaints. It's really just their filing fee. And unless they do something really wrong, they're not going to be harmed too much by this. And there's a lot of upside for them in the fact that they can file for, let's say, a $400 fee, or even just send a demand letter for free, and then they can potentially get, let's say, $5,000 on the lower end, and then $20,000 to $25,000 on the higher end. And these are just the typical settlement amounts. It can go lower sometimes, but it can definitely go higher. So it is the asymmetry that really presents a problem because the plaintiff's lawyers aren't deterred from this type of abusive litigation. So this next person writes, it's a shakedown. They never go to trial because it's too expensive. You pay several thousand to settle and learn from it with your next website. Basically true. There's a whole cottage industry of ADA website plaintiffs as well as California Proposition 65 bounty hunters. They're low lives and they're pros at this. You don't stand much of a chance in a fight with these sorts of predators or of scum, nor is it a good use of your time when you could work on your business. And so this is getting at another reason why we see so many settlements is oftentimes, when I'm talking to clients, they just want to move on from this. They don't want to be involved in defending this. And I can completely understand that because now you're diverting resources to these website accessibility lawsuits. You're at continual risk. It's likely going to cost more to defend than it will to settle. And again, there's the time consideration. So ultimately, when you consider all of the factors, it's usually worth it just to go ahead and settle and be done with it. Especially when you consider just the toll on your energy and your mental state. You're not focused. Your focus is diverted. And for small businesses, they've got to continue on with business. So it is an unexpected cost for many, and it comes with a lot of negative association to it. Another comment to that one reads, they are definitely hoping that you settle and agree to a payout. If it goes to trial, they have to present actual damages and willful disregard of ADA laws. So if OP original poster can fix any of the ADA issues or hire a local web company person to fix issues, if it ever makes it to court, OP shows judge that they immediately fix the issue once they're aware and adamantly offer to compensate any of OP's clients who are somehow infringed or damaged upon by noncompliance, but not likely to go to court anytime soon. Well, you have to understand what's realistic here. And this is where it's always helpful to talk with an attorney who is actively defending these cases and who doesn't mind actually doing more than just settling. Some defense attorneys are more just in the practice of settling than they are at looking at the individual cases. While most of them are overwhelmingly similar, sometimes there are fact patterns where defense attorneys, if they're looking at these individually, they're going to think, well, we have, this could potentially be an easier case to dismiss, or here are some more options to look at. When this person writes, hiring a local web company or person to fix it, no, you can't just hire anybody off the street. It does not work that way. Most web designers, web developers, marketing agencies, they really have no clue when it comes to accessibility. And so that can perpetuate this cycle. I have seen so many times where we have the largest corporations in the world. They think they have taken on accessibility only to find out that the digital accessibility company they've hired isn't really helping them resolve this issue. As much as you'll hear about diversity and inclusion, for the vast majority of organizations, this is simply about stopping the lawsuits. The problem is they go to someone to resolve the problem, and then that person doesn't really help them do what they need to do, exactly what they need to do. So definitely not, I would not go to just any web designer and say, hey, will you help me with this? In fact, I already have a video on a marketer where she was claiming that her agency is a full service agency and they can help you with ADA compliance. The vast majority of the time they cannot. And so that's just the reality. So you should go to an agency or a company who is dedicated to accessibility and thoroughly understands everything that is involved. Here's one more comment. We'll end on this. Or there's actually two more comments I want to get to because they're especially helpful. One is longer, so I'll skim through it. I just went through this. It's probably real, and you are probably getting notices from Docket Bird and tons of lawyers offering their service to fight it. There are opportunists taking advantage of these laws and suing anyone and everyone. Even the apps for accessibility have things the plaintiff can punch holes in, so don't bother installing one. So I think he's getting at widgets, and definitely do not use a widget. They are just scummy, taking advantage of businesses under the guise of helping you help the disabled. They bait and switch and price gouge. And then he says, I'm looking at you, Accessibility. If you value your time, you are going to want to pay a lawyer and settle this one out of court. It will go to arbitration and they will accept like $1,500. Your lawyer will cost more, maybe like $3,000. I can give you the one I used if you're interested in. So this is getting a little, this is somewhat similar to when I was talking about the chocolatier who was sued over website accessibility not once but twice. People that have been sued understand their experience, but their experience isn't universally applicable. So when he says it will go to arbitration and they will accept like $1,500, that is not how this usually plays out. $1,500. If you settle for $1,500, you have done a tremendous job. Your attorney negotiating has done a tremendous job, or you just don't have any money, and the plaintiff's lawyer realizes this and realizes they better just take what they can. But that's going back to the more broad issue here is that just because you have been involved in one of these lawsuits doesn't mean that every other lawsuit will be like the same. They're very, as I said, they're very similar, but there are differences. One of the differences being the settlement amounts. Again, if you can get it as low as $1,500, that's great. But you have to realize too that different plaintiffs' law firms have different approaches. They think about this differently. Also, different defense attorneys may think about this differently, and some may present to you more options than others. Continuing on with this comment, it says you can likely fight it and you can probably win, but it will be dragged out and eventually become too expensive for the other side to recoup their costs, so they will drop. For me, I just wanted to be gone so I could get to what I was actually important to me. In the end, it's just a cash grab for scum using a disabled person to take advantage of a small business. They want money and want it fast. They will settle for very little compared to what their complaint is asking for. Yeah, and on this last part, yes, the settlement amounts are usually much, much lower than the original request. And then we have another comment. I work in the digital accessibility space. It's almost certainly real. A lot of the law firms blast these demand letters out and just look for a quick settlement. And then he writes an acronym that I don't know what it means. And I recommend you talk to one, but you might be able to take the thanks for bringing this to our attention. We take this accessibility very seriously and understand our site is up to standards. We're in the process of XYZ. I've never heard of that working. So the thanks for bringing this to our attention, and we'll get to work on that. Plaintiffs' law firms don't go for that. Digital accessibility is a legitimate issue, but these firms give the whole community a bad name. If you need assistance, try reaching out to a digital accessibility firm. I won't plug my company, but oftentimes we set up a pro bono call to talk through this. And I saw someone mention WordPress plugins. Be careful with those. Oftentimes these law firms will target sites with those in particular. They don't fix the issue, just mask them, which oftentimes creates more problems for assistive technology users than they fix. So when you hear the words plugins, apps, software, widgets, overlay widgets, these might have some slight differences. Some WordPress plugins actually do help with certain accessibility issues. And I'm talking like very, very specific accessibility issues. But you need to know that there is no software, there is no plugin, there is no widget that's going to instantly make your website accessible or ADA compliant. And I think that's what this person is getting at. So we've covered a lot in this video, but I wanted to record this Reddit thread, or me going through this Reddit thread, to bring more attention to this. Small business owners are being decimated by this. Some are actually going out of business. I talked to a small business owner the other day. She was taking her website completely down. She was done with it. Did not want to. She just doesn't want the risk. She doesn't want to have to worry about being sued. She's just taking her website down. So I operate accessible.org. Of course, we offer accessibility services, but I will include links to more resources in the description so that you can find out about what's happening here, the lawsuits, and some other potential options that you have besides a full audit and remediation.